Okay, I want to introduce our second speaker, Emma Reynolds. Emma is a mindfulness teacher. She gives lots of conferences or talks at conferences and schools. She does training courses in in emotional intelligence and mindfulness. And she's done webinars. She's even done webinars for Macmillan in the past. And she's here today to give a talk on exam ready, a calm approach, a calm or a mindful approach. And this talk, okay, it says exam ready, but in actual fact, exam is just a word. The talk is going to focus on being ready for different public performance situations. And we can all think of many, I'm sure, and in our classrooms and also in our own lives as well. So with no further ado, I want to introduce Emma. Emma, welcome. A very warm welcome.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Louise. It's lovely to be here. And yeah, absolutely. We're going to be looking at mindful approaches towards dealing with stress levels, basically. And although it says the word exam, as Louise says, it really can also apply to all sorts of other scenarios where students have got to perform in any way at all. I just was listening to Louise talking there about them listening to each other doing their presentations. That's exactly the kind of thing that this session can help with, just to calm the nerves a little bit. So before I really get into the nitty-gritty of this talk, I thought perhaps we might just try a little practice ourselves, just to kind of get all your attention. So I'm going to invite you to be quite participative during this session, because really, as much as you can talk about mindfulness, it's only really when you actually do it that you really get the full experience, and you see the potential value for it for yourselves as teachers and also in the classroom. So what are we going to do? I'd like you to just take a moment to just sit up straight and to either close your eyes or lower your gaze. And I'm going to just invite you to notice how you're feeling right now. Okay, so perhaps with those eyes closed, just noticing how the mind is. Okay, so in mindfulness, we're not interested in changing, we're just interested in noticing our moment-to-moment experience. So just checking in, seeing how you are in the mind, whether it's feeling busy, it's planning, you've just taken in a lot of information from another talk, perhaps the mind is drifting off thinking about other things, emails, food. Just noticing where the mind is. Okay, is it in the past, is it in the future, or is it in the present, but it's sort of whirring away at something else? Okay, and then just to notice how the body is. So just checking in, is it feeling tight, tense, is it feeling tired? Just finding maybe one word for the mind and one word for the body. And now I'm just going to, as they say, invite the bell. I've got a Tibetan singing bowl here. I'm just going to hit it. And I'm going to just invite you with your eyes closed just to listen to the sound, okay? So thoughts may keep popping in. That's absolutely fine and normal. But just keep coming back to the sound and really listening in until you can hear it end. Okay, it's probably about 20 seconds long. Just as that sound is starting to fade, just perhaps becoming aware of your breath. So just noticing, without changing the breath at all, just the movement of the breath. So perhaps having an awareness of it in the nostrils, or perhaps feeling it going all the way down into the belly and then coming all the way back up again. Okay? And just seeing if you can follow that breath all the way down and all the way back up. Okay, so just inviting this curiosity. What does this breath feel like? Okay. And now just sitting here, and again, just noticing how you feel now. Perhaps noticing how the mind is, seeing if anything has settled, noticing if the body has changed in any way. Okay, and now just gently opening the eyes. Now, obviously, I can't see you all, but I would hazard a guess that some of you maybe feel a little bit calmer, perhaps a little bit more present. Some of you may have woken up and noticed that you're a little bit tense in the body. Perhaps you've noticed you've got a busy mind, or perhaps you're feeling really tired. Okay. So this is a practice to just start to, well, introduce you to mindfulness and what it actually means to be mindful. It's really about bringing this awareness to your present moment experience. Okay. So just introducing myself, my name is Emma Reynolds. I am an accredited mindfulness teacher, and I'm trained to teach mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, which is a course for adults. And I'm also trained through Mindfulness in Schools project to teach children mindfulness as well in the classroom. So I'm interested in getting just an idea of who I'm talking to today. So perhaps if you wouldn't mind just taking part in our poll. Okay, so how often, if at all, do you use mindfulness techniques in the class? So we have every class, once a week, sometimes, never. Okay, so I'm just going to invite you now just to click on one of those, and I will just click over and have a little look, see what's coming in. We've been doing a series of these talks, and some people are using mindfulness in the classroom, aren't they, Louise? But the majority,
yes,
yeah,
majority are saying never. No, there's about 70% saying never, and sometimes 25-ish. Okay, so that's where the majority is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, so never. Great, okay, so we've got a whole lot of newbies. Okay, so today we're going to be looking at exam stress, and exam stress, presentation stress, performance stress. And what is it? What is this thing called stress? I mean, I'm sure at the moment, well, we'll find out later, but we're all going through some really complicated times right now, and a lot of us are feeling stressed out. What is it? Okay, so maybe some of you will know this, maybe some of you won't, but just to kind of review what stress is. Stress is really our fight and flight mechanism. Okay, so it's this very, very old, I mean, every animal on the planet has it, system to keep us safe. Okay, so if you think of a lizard, for example, what does a lizard spend a lot of its time doing? It's either running towards food and attacking it in some way, or it's fighting off predators, or it's running away from predators that they feel they can't fight. Okay, so they're running towards or they're running away. There's also freeze as well. And this mechanism, which, like I say, all animals have, we also have in our brains as well. And it's there to kind of keep us safe. So we're okay, everything's okay, there's no problems. And then suddenly we get a threat, which is either a real threat or a perceived threat. And in a very, very quick sequence of events, the amygdala starts to tell the system there is a problem. Okay, the amygdala or amygdalae, there's actually two of them just in the back of the head here. And it starts to tell the body that there is something going on which is potentially a threat to our system. Okay, when we start going into the fight and flight mechanism, adrenaline and cortisol pumped around the body, getting us ready to be tense and tight, okay, to run. The heart beats faster so the blood can be pumped around the system. Our breath gets short, okay? And this mechanism, on one side, it's a real double-edged sword because, of course we want to, imagine you're walking in the forest and, you've got Habali suddenly running after you, for example. You need that push of adrenaline to kind of get you running. Okay, so it's useful. You are potentially in danger, but we're just not in that kind of physical danger as much as we have been in, you know, way back in history when we were cavemen and cavewomen. And yet we've still got the same mechanism. So now what threats do we have? What stresses us out? Well, quite often it's perceived threats. And this is where we're going to today, is that we either start bringing back information from the past and rehashing the past over and over again and stressing ourselves out with that. If only I'd done this, if only I'd done that. Or going into the future and, for example, with our students, starting to think about exams or starting to think about that presentation they've got to do or that project that they've got to hand in. And I'm sure you've had this experience where you mention the word test or exam and there's this sort of flurry of going on in the classroom. That's their fight and flight mechanism kicking in. Okay, it's getting them ready because, something's happening. And it's very much linked to a thinking process, which we're going to be looking at. Okay, so it's useful for keeping us safe, but it's very unuseful when we need to keep calm and be, present. And we have this this rather useful model, which is from Dan Siegel, which I'll show you in a moment, which is called flipping the lid. Okay, so we get into a place where when we've really got ourselves stressed out, we can't really concentrate anymore. So maybe just for example, to give you, something you might recognize, if you've ever had this experience where, I don't know, you've had your bag stolen, or you think you've had your bag stolen, or your jacket or your wallet stolen, okay? And you suddenly have this moment of, oh my God, I need to do something right now. I need to, I don't know, call my partner or my housemate or whatever and tell them that my keys have been stolen and I need to call them, and their mobile number is, oh my God, I've gone completely blank. I can't think. Now, what's happened there? What you need to do is to absolutely be in control and bring back memories and information so that you can actually think about what you need to do next. But because of this very old system that we've got, it's not about thinking. It's about physical action. It's about running away or fighting. Okay, so this is what can happen to our students. And here is this model. So if you can see that in the image there, this is a model of basically our neck and our brains, okay? So this part here is just coming up into the brain. It's the brain stem. And here, kind of, if you can imagine, this is sort of in the back of the brain here. We've got the amygdala, this is called the limbic system, and it's also connected with the emotions as well. And most of the time it's just sitting there quietly, it's not doing very much, it's just ticking over. And then we have this part, which is what we would recognize if we looked at a brain, that grey part. The bit that we're really interested in is the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is this part here. It's just literally behind this part of the face. Okay, and so when we're calm and everything's okay, everything's just tootling along, nothing really big is happening, we've got our wise leader here kind of working with the whole of the brain, just helping us to do our work, for example, in the classroom. The minute you say, oh, and by the way, tomorrow you're going to have a surprise test, boing, this happens or can potentially happen, okay? We flip our lid, okay? Because the amygdala has gone, oh my goodness, there is a problem. I'm not ready to do an exam. I'm having a little bit of a panic attack right now. This action happens in milliseconds, okay? And it needs to work in milliseconds because if you think about it, if you were going to be attacked by a tiger, you don't want to be in this state, standing around thinking, well, should I run? What should I do now? You want to just run. You just need to move, okay? So, boom, off it goes. Let's flip the lids, okay? And yet, we're just thinking about an exam or a test. Or we're actually in front of the exam and the test. And we don't need to run and we don't need to fight. What we need to do is have this part of the brain absolutely in place and working. So what we're going to be looking at in these practices is sort of seeing how we can actually notice when we're starting to flip our lid, and find out how we can actually bring this part of the brain back online. Sometimes it's called the lower part of the brain and the upper part of the brain as well. It's another way of thinking about it. Okay. And mindfulness can help us with this. So let's have a look at a very easy definition of mindfulness. There's a lot out there, but I'd say mindfulness is knowing what you're doing whilst you're doing it without judgment. So with a certain amount of kindness. So sometimes we can be completely lost in automatic pilot. So automatic pilot would be when we do things when we really aren't connected with what we're doing. So perhaps for some of you that drive or walk to work, or in the past when we used to be able to, have you ever done that thing where you get in the car and you start driving to work and it's a Saturday? Or you start going somewhere and you think, why am I going here? This is not what I'm supposed to be doing today. I'm supposed to be going over there. We're on automatic pilot. We're doing something without really fully engaging our brain. There's a bit of the brain still ticking over, allowing things to happen, but we're not fully connected. Okay? So we get stuck a lot in this automatic pilot system, okay? Or if we're not on automatic pilot, we do know what we're doing. I'm getting totally stressed out. I'm getting really angry. I'm getting really frustrated. And then the next thing kicks in, the judgment. I don't want to be angry. I don't want to be frustrated. Why am I always angry? I'm so angry about being angry. I'm so anxious and I'm always feeling anxiety. I'm so sad. I'm always sad. We get really hard on ourselves. What's wrong with me? Why can't I hold it together? Okay. None of it, which is very helpful. In fact, we just give ourselves a bit of a whipping. And just as we do as adults, so we do as the students do as well. Okay, and so we get stuck in this kind of endless cycle of being stressed out, worrying about being stressed out, having thoughts about being stressed out, having body sensations, feeling sick in the stomach or tight in the chest or in the back or in the jaw, not being able to sleep at night. And then, of course, what you need to do if you've got an exam or something to do the next day is sleep. Of course, your body can't rest because it's still in the middle of a fight and flight situation. So it's still pumping a bit of adrenaline and cortisol around. The body is still tense. The last thing it's going to let you do is go to sleep because it thinks it's in danger. So let's have a look at some things about mindfulness. So as I mentioned before, we get caught in this loop. So an exam is mentioned in the classroom, okay? It starts a whole bunch of thinking. Some students may say, great, I'm really looking forward to it. But quite a few of them are probably thinking, oh no, oh no. And this is an automatic reaction that happens. We have between 70,000 and 125,000 thoughts a day. Okay, they just come unbidden, don't they? When they just pop into our heads, we don't know where they come from. Scientists don't know exactly how we end up with thoughts. They just appear. But the shocking news is that 80% of them are negative and 90% of them we've had before. So we're rather stuck on a kind of loop. And so we get really good at this. Somebody mentions the word exam, ping, suddenly we go into this negativity bias. Oh, it's not going to go very well. Oh, I'm not going to be able to succeed. I'm never going to have enough time, and all the other stories that we start telling ourselves about this. This can also be us as adults as well. We're all going through this process at the moment. Schools have now closed until September. I bet we all had a rush of, oh no, now what are we going to do? We're getting flooded at the moment with all of these thoughts, worrying about the future, worrying about something that, we sort of thought we had under control. I mean, the reality is we never really know what's going to happen in the future. But now more than ever, we're really getting stressed out because all of these thoughts are flooding us all the time. What's going to happen? What's going to happen with health, with money, with my job, with security, the country, the world? All thoughts that are starting to get the fight and flight mechanism going, all pumping us with adrenaline and cortisol and nowhere for it to go. So mindfulness is a little bit about waking up to this system and seeing how we can help ourselves. Okay, because if we're not careful, we get what we call the snowball effect. So one thought just comes into the mind. I've got an exam tomorrow. Oh no, I don't know if I've done enough work. Oh God, I really wish I'd done some more things. Actually, I wonder if it's going to be this thing. You know, I'm always doing this. I never do enough. Blah 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 blah. Everyone's going to think I'm stupid, and I'm going to get into trouble. And my parents are going to say this, and the teachers are going to say that, and I need to do some more work. Okay, so we get this from one story. We suddenly get more and more piling on top of each other. Okay, another word for this: catastrophizing. Okay, and again. Quite a lot of us are going through this at the moment. This is not, it's not a small thing that we're going through at the moment, a pandemic. It's unheard of. So we can find ourselves moving through from anxiety through to full-on fear to overwhelm, because we're just getting absolutely bombarded with information. And again, this is just making us flip our lid and then run around in this non-thinking kind of headless chicken kind of a way. So here we are. I'd be interested to really hear from you now as to what you personally are finding stressful at the moment. Okay, in these present circumstances as a teacher, clearly a lot of you are working from home. Probably a lot of you have got children and family at home, having to deal suddenly with online, technical problems. Go for it. Just maybe, a couple of words just to let us know really what's kind of going on with you at the moment, okay? Whatever you feel like sharing. Just a couple of words of what is stressful for you, okay?
Okay, we've got teleworking, working so much. Yeah. There are no boundaries.
Yeah.
Adapting to teaching, working online, long hours is similar. Answering emails, lack of sleep, the job. Not really knowing how students are dealing with the situation.
Yeah, worrying about students.
Absolutely. Uncertainty, having to evaluate students, finding solutions for students who are not connected. Of course, yes, because not everybody has the same technical setup. Designing and adapting all kinds of materials.
Yeah.
Overwhelmed.
Yeah, so, okay. Yeah. And I would imagine, I'd be interested for you to reflect at home, just to see the outpouring that's there, and how you could probably recognize yourself in all of those messages at some point. So at the moment, maybe it's the technical issues. In another moment, it's dealing with family, time pressure, emails. This word overwhelm that's is being used a lot as well. It's moving from just a little bit of stress all the way to overwhelm. Yeah, so how can we help ourselves with all of this that's going on? Okay, so let's just do a little practice. First of all, I'd invite you to maybe just not read that for a moment, but let's just close our eyes, okay, or lower our gaze. We're just going to do a little practice here, okay? So I'd like you, as teachers, just to sort of close your eyes and bring to mind something that has been stressful in the last week or so, okay? Something that's really got you going. Perhaps it's a particular situation with students, maybe it's just the workload, it may be just the uncertainty of how long this is going to go on for and are you going to be able to deal with it. And really place yourself there, okay? Maybe it was a certain time of day. Maybe it's a recurring thing that's happening as well. But just noticing the thoughts that are around this. How thoughts create other thoughts, and then we start to have thoughts about those thoughts. Yeah, so and then starting to notice how those thoughts can start creating an emotion. So perhaps you've even got a sense of it now, or just remembering back to that. Was it worry? Was it anxiety? Just general stress? Was it overwhelm? Maybe there was some sadness there. And then you may have a sense of that right now. And if not, maybe you can remember back, or your sort of your points in your body where you feel that sort of stress. So perhaps it's in the chest area, maybe a sense of tightness, pressure, heart beating fast, maybe a shortness of breath. And perhaps it's in the belly and a tightening. Perhaps it's in the shoulders and the neck, or the jaw, or even the forehead, or somewhere else. Okay, so just sitting with that for a moment, okay? So you may just reflect, and I'm sorry to take you into a stressful place, but it is kind of useful to see how you can also get yourself out of it again. It's quite interesting to reflect that even just bringing to mind something can take you there. So this is what I mean about a real threat or a perceived threat, that our imagination is so very powerful, it can bring on the fight and flight mechanism even when you're just thinking about something stressful. It doesn't even have to be happening right this moment, okay? So I'm going to just talk you now through the stop practice, okay? So keeping with your eyes closed for the moment. The S of stop is about standing still or stopping. Okay, so obviously in this scenario, you're actually already sitting down, I would imagine, but just this sense of stopping and actually feeling the bottom on the seat and feeling your feet on the floor. So really having that sensory experience, really feeling your feet. A moment ago, you probably had no awareness of feet. Now you can absolutely send your awareness to your feet and your shoes, maybe a sense of the socks or floor. And I'm just going to invite you to take 2 or 3. What I mean by that is, and it may even be useful to place a hand on the chest and another hand on the belly, okay? So just below the belly button. And just as you breathe in, you may just notice you can feel the chest moving up and the belly moving out as you breathe in. And as you breathe out, just letting that go slowly. And again, breathing in and breathing out. And one last time, breathing in and breathing out. Now, for some people, using the breath as an anchor can actually trigger more anxiety, especially if you have some breathing problems, okay? So if that feels uncomfortable for you, you can also use the feet on the floor or the bottom on the seat as the anchor, okay? So it's bringing us back into the present moment. What's happening right here, right now? And you'll notice it's a very sensory experience. It's all about what's going on in the body, not what's going on in the mind, okay? So keep breathing, keep staying with the breath. Now the T is just taking a moment to tune into the body and seeing how the body is reacting. And gently turning towards any pain, tension or tightness without resisting. So this is where curiosity comes in. Often when we feel tension in our body, we do a lot to try and get rid of it. We start pulling the body around, trying to get rid of it in some way. There's a lot of resistance there. Mindfulness is all about trying to actually get really close up to our sensory experience. So actually, could you just imagine you're sort of sending a spotlight of awareness into any discomfort in the body right now? And in any way allowing it just to be there. Perhaps just gently breathing into it. And on the out breath, just letting go. And then the O is now this opportunity to change our reaction. So if there's any pain, tension or tightness, what would it be like to breathe into it, letting it go? And again, not trying to push it away. Softening our resistance. Maybe coming to this allowing. This is here anyway. Can I stop being resistant to it as well? And then the P is the possibility. Okay, so with that, congratulations. You've now potentially found the space to step out of this automatic pilot. Okay, and with this freedom, what can you now do to best take care of yourself? So what we're doing with this practice, you can open your eyes again now. What we're doing with this practice is really turning towards our present moment experience, okay? And really being with it. And this is, again, what I was talking about mindfulness, knowing what you're doing whilst you're doing it. So in this case, oh, I'm getting really stressed out. And not being judgmental with it, but instead noticing the thoughts, how it affects the emotions, and then finding how it affects the body, bringing a practice to it, so something like deep breathing or having an awareness of the feet on the floor, the bottom on the seat, and bit by bit, just bringing yourself out of it. Okay. Now that was, how long? Maybe 2 minutes or something? It could be not even that. It could be 30 seconds. The stopping is the key, because quite often when we get into a stress pattern, we can, it's like a roller coaster. It just sort of drags us along. And this stop, remembering just stop, is the beginning of, I almost imagine it a bit like a kind of a crossroads, okay? It's like stop. I mean, I'm about to go down one route of stress, and I'm going to take everyone with me, my family, or if I'm in the middle of a classroom and it's me that's getting stressed, or I'm getting stressed reacting to the kids' stress, we're all bundled up together going down the same old roller coaster, and it's like, wow, stop, just stop right now. And let's just bring a practice in, and let's just go down a different route. And in this way, mindfulness is really giving us an opportunity to bring some change. Now, as I mentioned, this all really begins, not always, but often begins with thoughts. So it's quite good to question our thoughts, because very often we don't. So something like, in a student's case, this is just going to go terrible. I haven't done enough work. This is awful. You can do this little practice, and you can really use this in the classroom with everybody. Is this true? And usually the knee-jerk reaction is, yes, it's absolutely true. This is going to be awful. I'm not going to do well, for example. Are you sure? Is there any other way of seeing this? Okay. So it just starts to open the door to some sort of possibility of like, well, is it absolutely black and white 100%, or is there some possibilities here? And then noticing again, this practice, how is it showing up in the body and the mind? What's the storyline? This is a really key one. What story am I telling myself here? And if you reflect back for yourselves right in this very moment, like what's the storyline that's running through my head right now? Because one thing is reality, which is actually we're just sitting on our sofa reading the news, but the storyline that's running in our head is this is all going horribly wrong, perhaps, possibly. And yet, this is a future that we have no idea about. The reality is we're sitting on the sofa. So, which is the reality here? The real moment-to-moment experience, or what our mind is telling us? So this is why it's useful to wake up to our thoughts. And then finally, what would it be like to let go of the story? What benefits might you feel? Because quite often, you can create your own reality by telling yourself a story so much that eventually that becomes your truth. So instead of getting all tight, I'm going to do very well, let's see. Let's open up the storyline a little bit. Okay, it's trying to help you in one way, this voice, but it's just being a bit aggressive. Okay, well, let's see. Maybe you won't do as badly as you think you're going to do, but let's try and calm ourselves down, do a practice, stop flipping our lid about it, and see if we can actually come back into the present moment and turn up to the exam in a more calm state so that we can really bring memory and knowledge to the fore when we need it. Okay? And just to quickly explore some other easy practices that you can bring into the classroom. Now, I'm very aware that none of you have ever done mindfulness before. So the starting point is, and this is why I'm reflecting so much on you as teachers, is that really, for you to get interested in mindfulness is key, because, of course, you can't go into a classroom scenario, offering mindfulness when you're not being mindful yourself. So what could you do to help yourself feel a little bit more confident about bringing mindfulness into the classroom? Or perhaps exploring, and there'll be some information in the handout, to places where you can find out more information for yourselves if you're interested in doing mindfulness practices. And also some resources for students as well. I think in there there's short meditations, there's some web pages to have a look at. But just to quickly go through ones that are here. 1 minute breathing, very quick, 1 minute. It's a bit of a sneaky one for students. Okay, so you don't even need to mention the words relaxation or mindfulness, or certainly not meditation, especially when you're dealing with teenagers, because it just brings images to their mind which are unuseful. So just invite them to close their eyes or lower their gaze, because sometimes they feel uncomfortable closing their eyes, especially, I mean, online it's probably easier because they won't have people around them, but when you're back in the classroom, you know, just so they don't feel like somebody might be, you know, giving them a poke or sniggering at them or whatever. Just invite them to be in their own little bubble. And that if they don't want to practice, it's absolutely fine, okay? You can't oblige people to do things, but if not, just sit quietly and not bother anyone else. But to invite them just to get curious with their breath. So just as you did, inviting them to breathe and notice their breaths. Okay, so breathing in and breathing out is 1, breathing out in and breathing out is 2. And you're just going to invite them to count how many breaths they do in 1 minute. And after a minute, you ask them, how many breaths did you do? Put your hands up if you did 5, 10, 15, 20. Now, the trick is that they think that it's all about how many breaths they did and whether this is, you know, important or it was good or bad. It doesn't matter how many breaths they did in a minute. What you've sneakily done is got them to completely concentrate on the present moment by connecting to their breath. Interestingly, you may well also be able to gauge people's stress levels from this, because when we're stressed, we breathe very quickly and not very deeply. So you may be able to also recognize who is maybe a little bit more stressed than others. And you may, if you do this as a continual practice, start to notice, oh right, people's breath is slowing down. So they're doing less breaths per minute. And you can actually see how that practice is maybe starting to calm them down, because even during 1 minute, you'll notice that your breathing changes, because once you put your attention on your breath, it calms down. And that's because it's really talking to your nervous system. So the fight and flight mechanism is all about rushing around and being fast. Slowing down, breathing slower allows us to be calmer. Another interesting one is the petal practice. Okay, this is really simple, really quick one. So we imagine that the hand is like a flower, and that we look at the flower, our hand, and as we breathe in, you can try this one at home. As we breathe in, the petals of the flower open. And as we breathe out, they close. Okay? So just trying that now on your own. So this is very simple. It seems to have a little bit of magic to it. I'm not quite sure. I think it's the combination of breathing and having a visual, so it's something to really focus on with their mind. Okay? But this is great. You're just about to do a test. Just do this. Just literally do 5 breaths of that before you start. And it's just going to bring everything down and calm everything down. You know, teenagers, they get very shy. You know, you can just be doing it. You can just, you know, have your hand in your lap and you're just doing it before you start your test. Okay. Also, this isn't just about exams. This is maybe things that you can bring in to get them used to doing it just at the beginning of the classroom, you know. So just as you've probably experienced coming into this session, mind's a bit busy, body's a bit, you know, tense, tight, tired or whatever. And I brought a practice in right at the very beginning to set the tone. So these can really set the tone, bring everyone into the now so that they can learn. And then also they can use these same things for when they're about to do something like a test or speak in public or what have you. Okay. Fofbok, there's an explanation in the handout, but a Fofbok is basically feet on floor, bottom on chair. So inviting the students to, as I did, just become aware of sensation of the feet on the floor and the bottom on the seat, okay, on the chair, and perhaps then noticing the breath. Again, that can be a very short practice, 30 seconds, 2 minutes, just bringing everyone back into the room. And another one that we can do is breathing in and 2 out. So if you close your eyes, I'm just going to get you to do this for a moment. So as you breathe in, not any special breathing at all, but just noticing your breath. As you breathe in, you may notice you count 1, 2, and as you breathe out, you count 1, 2, 3, 4. So in this way, you purposely extend the out breath, because this, again, is allowing the body to calm down. Okay? And finally, breathing, breath count to 10. So again, this is just another way of focusing the mind, which can be really busy, bouncing around. We sometimes call it that monkey mind, or with kids, we also say it's like a puppy mind. We talk about puppy training, mind training. So when you've got a puppy, you want it to sit still and stay. But what happens with the puppy? Does it sit still and stay? No, it runs around all over the place and brings you back messes. How do you train your puppy? By being very calm, very patient with it, lots of repetition, and little bit by little bit, if you're kind to it, the puppy will stay. Okay, so it's not a one-hit wonder. It takes a while for the mind to stay, just as the puppy does. Okay, so we're trying to bring ourselves back and bring ourselves back and bring ourselves back. And the more times that we do this, the better we get at it. Yeah. And finally, I just maybe want you to reflect a little bit on the energy that you bring into your classroom, even online. Okay, you know that experience that your students can just be like mirrors. They're like dogs or horses. They can smell the fear or the stress. So when you come into the room and you're feeling a little bit befuddled, and you've just maybe had some bad news, or you're rushing or whatever, that comes into the room with you, and they react to that. So if you are feeling stressed, that's maybe also the energy that's coming into the room with you. So perhaps bringing some of these practices to you just before you start an online session would just, help you focus and come back to the present moment. Just a few conscious breaths will really help. Okay. Okay. So I'm very interested to hear from you. There's quite a lot of information in there, but please do get involved if you'd like me to answer any of your questions. I usually get quite a flood, so we'll do our best to answer them in the moment. And if not, stick around, because what I will try to do is maybe type some answers if I don't get to you. Okay. So let's just have a look, see if anybody has any questions. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just looking down. Questions are going yes. Oh, somebody is asking, is there any bibliography? Well, that would be in the handout, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That in there, I've put in a few links or names of books. This, for example, this model for the brain comes from Dr. Dan Siegel, and he's got a fantastic book which is called The Whole Brain Child, which is, it's a fascinating read, for you as teachers, for you as parents, to just really understand what's going on in the brain when we start to go into these different systems, when we're feeling tired, when we're feeling stressed, and some really good strategies for bringing students kind of back online. The other thing I would also mention is that obviously this is all about like exam stress and being very high and up and coming down. But there's also that other moment of like in the classroom where it's a little bit sluggish. Okay, you need to kind of like wake them up a little bit.
Yes.
Okay, so bringing physicality can really help, because there's a lot of sitting down at the moment looking at computer screens. So inviting your students to do the opposite, to have a stretch and look up. There's something about our physicality that really affects our mood. So if you contemplate for a moment sitting down like this and being hunched over, and perhaps telling yourself, as we sometimes catch ourselves doing, oh God, I've got so much to do. I've got so much to do. This feels really heavy, doesn't it? And we can very quickly feel a little bit kind of sad and depressed, whilst looking up and going, I've got so much to do. Even if you don't really feel like feeling all jolly like that, can really, just smiling and looking up, it sends endorphins through the body and can just be enough to lift your mood. And I sometimes recommend for teachers, if you're having a bad day and you've got to go into the classroom, just do that. Just look up and smile for a minute, even if you don't feel like it. And it just brings enough of the good vibe in for you to go right and on and into the next thing. Yeah, can be very useful.
Yes. And so somebody asked, some students start
Yes.
giggling and make it hard for others, what can we do? Yes, I mean, we all feel,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not easy, obviously, in large groups. We're talking about 30 odd students, and that age group as well, teens. So you can
The
understand
beauty of,
that people would have concerns.
yeah, I know, teenagers, very tricky age group. The thing is, you can, the beauty, nothing that can be not explored, because it's all about curiosity of the present moment. So if you have someone giggling, then absolutely name it. There's no, there's no like shame at all in saying, yeah, so notice that there's this feeling of hilarity and humor right now. What does that feel like? Where's that in the body? Get curious with that. Is it in the chest area? Is it like a tickly feeling in the belly? I mean, enjoy that moment as well. It's also it's a pleasant experience, isn't it? But to then breathe
Yes,
into that, you know,
yes,
or to redirect the attention and go, right, let's go to the feet right now. Okay, we notice there's hilarity, there's hilarious senses, but what about your feet? How are your feet feeling right now? And it can just break the circuit, because the mind can't stay on two things at the same time. We think we're very good at multitasking, but actually we just do two things badly, or three or four. So one thing at a time. So here you are.
great.
A minute ago you're thinking about your brain and funny, and now your feet, and now you're thinking about your belly, and now you're thinking about your breath, and you're just sending that torchlight of awareness around. Yep.
Great. Just one last question. How often to do this?
Wow.
And when?
Okay, so the neuroscience tells us that the more you practice, the better, because you are literally making new neural pathways in the brain. Okay, so I haven't really had time to go into all of this, but there is a lot of really
No.
interesting stuff out there. If you look on like TEDx, there's a lot of talks about mindfulness and neuroscience. So, just as as teachers, at the beginning, you try to learn the piano, you can't do it. And then suddenly, bit by bit, you practice every day and suddenly you get good. That's because there are literal neural pathways that are connecting together. So at the moment, students are practicing perhaps, and we are practicing being stressed. And guess what? We're creating really strong neural pathways. Bit by bit, if we start practicing being more calm, then those neural pathways, they start to wither away and new neural pathways connect. And eventually that becomes our new normal. So the answer is as much as you can. Really,
Okay.
as much as you can. Starting the class is very good, but also if you feel like you're losing people, because we just get lost in thought, don't we? Right, let's everyone stop a minute. Everyone just notice your feet. Can you just feel your feet? What do your feet feel like? Hot, cold? My shoes are tight. Great. Okay, back into the classroom again. What are we doing? Oh, this verb. It can just be that. It's like a little brain break.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Emma. Thank you very, very much for
Okay.
those practical ideas. And I think it's been great. I think one thing I took from you in particular was the idea that if we don't do it, we as the teachers, we are the models,
Yeah. Yeah.
then it's not going to work. And there's no point talking about getting the students to do it unless we do it ourselves. And so that's the key. And we have, an opportunity now, and I think a time now when we need to do these kind of exercises to help bring us back in and focus and
Absolutely.
take the stress out of it all. So thank you very, very much. And thank you to everybody for participating this evening. It's been a real pleasure. You've written in lots of comments in the Have You Says, and you've responded really quickly to the polls. It's been great. And I want to wish you all the very best. And thank you for the tremendous effort that you're making, teaching students online, and the situation that you're coping with, and having to juggle that with your private life and your family, etc. So, a big thanks and a big applause to you.
Yes.